When I first joined Dropbox, I very much wanted to figure out what I was doing here. And so research and trying to read as much as possible was quite important to me. Day to day, the nature of my role in particular is that I'm often juggling many threads at once. And there are times where I feel like honestly pretty bad about myself for not being able to keep track of all this stuff. I don't think I'm alone in that. By the way, I'm not trying to bring it to, but I think a lot of people, like when they are, struggling to keep all the threads like in their own context, it can be kind of like frustrating and, maybe even like kind of bum you out some of the time.
Yeah, it's very relatable.
And I don't want that for myself. And I think that most people don't want that. So to me, that means that like we can help people do their job better in this way.
If you are listening to this podcast, first, welcome. It probably means that you do a lot of work on a computer, where getting things done can feel a little chaotic at times.
I'm Sean Michael Lewis. I'm a principal engineer at Dropbox. One of the fundamental hypotheses of using AI for knowledge work is that there's just too much knowledge. How do I find all the information that I care about if I don't know where it was it here, there, or whatever?
We're talking about hundreds of tabs in your browser, knowledge that's buried in email threads and Slack, the 30 or more different apps and services where all of your content lives, not to mention the digital bird's nest of poorly organized files that, if you are anything like me, hangs over your entire existence. And it's not just about finding things amid all of this chaos, answers, information, solutions. You also want to use that knowledge, understand it, and share it with your team.
So we're looking at ways to give AI to more customers. We're looking at ways to improve the quality of our chats, to improve the quality of our searches, and ways to build better context for AI usage more generally.
I'm Matthew Braga, and this is Working Smarter, a podcast from Dropbox about how AI is changing the way we work and get stuff done. Over the last 2 seasons of this podcast, we've talked to chefs, archaeologists, an F1 team, and roboticists about what it actually looks like to work alongside AI today.
We're developing machine learning methods in order to detect shipwreck sites.
Yes, we're a Formula One team, but we are also just an entity that turns up to work. And I think, AI plays a key role there.
There's a nice balance in the kitchen and being able to use AI as a tool, but not completely rely on it for everything.
But this season, we're going to take a closer look at what it takes to solve some of the problems that make modern work so frustrating and chaotic.
I've always really enjoyed the experience of building something new that you don't quite understand how people are going to find it useful. There's unique challenges with it. Everyone's getting used to how to use AI in their work and what AI means and how it's useful to, different people in different roles. It's an exciting journey to sort of form that with people, especially as we think about the workplace itself.
That's Noorain Noorani, a product manager at Dropbox who's been doing some of that big picture thinking. Like, what if AI could help you find what you need when you need it using plain language, just like talking to a colleague? Or make it easier to organize, understand, and share your team's work? What if AI could help you move just a little bit faster and focus on the work that matters most?
Like, hey, how do we actually get back to doing really cool things, really like creative tasks, understanding people better, understanding, clarity in our work, clarity in our communication, which I think AI really requires. And that's been just an unexpected journey. I think it's really cool to be working on something that the entire world is sort of wrapping their heads around at the same given moment.
On today's episode, we're talking about how you build AI that actually understands you.
The fact that you have the things that you're working on day to day hooked up and it understands both what you're working on, but how you work, who you work with, what tools you typically do your work in. It means that it's a little bit more personalized to you. It understands you a little bit better. And that makes, your job when you're asking it to find things a little bit easier.
And it all starts with context. That's coming up next on Working Smarter. So, like a lot of companies, Dropbox has been looking at ways to bring some of the benefits and opportunities of AI into the Dropbox experience people know and love. This is what Noorain has been working on, these AI features within Dropbox, which are also known as Dash.
Essentially, what it allows you to do is find and ask questions or create new content across all of the different tools you use for work. So for me, that means Dropbox, Slack, Google Drive, emails, messages, your calendar. So I think for anyone in, a common workplace, your calendar kind of governs your day, right? So Google Calendar, Outlook Calendar. So kind of your big workspace tools. And then there's sort of niche tools. A lot of our customers are sort of in marketing departments, creative departments. And so we see a lot of Figma, Canva, HubSpot, Notion, Jira. I use it a lot to, for example, today we had a bug bash for a new feature that we're building. And I used it to kind of find the status of the overall product, where the feature was at, what the status of the different bugs that we found were. So all of our, conversations, discussions, decisions live in Slack. Some of it was also in Jira. So we created a bunch of Jira tickets coming out of that bug bash. So I don't need to go into each of those independently and figure that out because it's already hooked up to all of the different tools that I use for work. And I used it to write a quick status update to my manager who's actually off at an offsite just to give him a quick peek into kind of what we've been up to this week.
How is Dash deciding in those circumstances, like where to search first, where to go, where to look, what to access?
So as a customer, you always have all of the control to say, hey, these are the 3 big tools that I want to sync up to Dash. So I might choose my Google Drive, my email, and let's say Slack. And so you can connect whatever it is that you're working with. So that's kind of factor 1. We decide, hey, these are the things the user cares about. This is what they've added, and we'll look across those things. Then we'll look at kind of the intent of your message. So all that information can kind of live in different places, right? For example, if I said, hey, help me find this design that I was working on with the designer I work with, it probably wouldn't look in Jira and it wouldn't look in Gmail. So it's kind of making decisions around where to look for those files. So it might be more intelligent or will be more intelligent to look in somewhere like Figma or Canva if I had synced that up. And if I hadn't, it would say, hey, there's 2 options and it can go down either route. One is to say, let me look in other places that might have been shared with you. Might have been shared with you via email or Slack. And if I don't find it there, then I might come back to you and say, actually, I don't see that you have any Figma or Canva connected to Dash. Would you like to connect it? And I'll give you the opportunity to sync it up right there.
Does Dash have a personality? Like, how would you describe what it's like to interact with Dash?
It's pretty subjective, right? Like the way that we've designed it is to be kind of like a helpful coworker is the identity that, as we've been working through it, that we've sort of started to give it. So the way that I always describe that is, 1, usually professional, but also, you want to have someone that you enjoy working with. And so it's got a little bit of humor, a little bit of delight, and also kind of anticipates your needs a little bit. Verbosity was a thing that we really considered. So like how much text are we giving? What is the intent of the message that Dash is sending back to you? So does it kind of always go one step further to anticipate what your needs are, kind of like a coworker? And then from a personality perspective, how that comes in is that sort of concise professional attitude, but also with a little bit of delight. So you also enjoy working with that coworker, and it's not just a monotone, professional, very strict relationship.
Of course. And I love that you use that word delight in a couple of cases. And I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit more about how you think about delight in just building that experience overall.
About a month ago or so, we were making a couple iterations to how Dash Chat would respond to you. And we had gotten on a call with a customer to walk them through it. And there were 2 instances that I feel like they had these moments of delight. One was when you send, a message to Dash and say, hey, can you find me like this thing? There's 2 parts of that I find are particularly delightful. One where it kind of knows where to look for that thing. So it anticipates, hey, I expect that we're going to find this in Slack because I know you use Slack for this sort of thing. The second is when it actually finds that thing successfully. And that was actually like how Dash started. It started as this universal search product and kind of evolved into being an assistant. But the root of that pain point of just being able to find that thing you're looking for, regardless of where it lives, I find that delight moment still comes up often. So 2 parts to that are, one, just the transparency of understanding what Dash is doing, that it knows your tools, it knows you because it has access to all of your content. And then 2, when it's actually like successful at doing a thing that would have taken you a long time to do because it has access to all that content. And you don't actually have to like give it more instruction in order for it to get there. The last piece of that I think I've seen time and time again with our customers is when you ask Dash to write something for you. And I just did this morning, so I felt it myself as well, where if you can save someone time writing a document, that really lands, especially when you can demonstrate that end to end for something that you do daily. So an example of an aha moment I really saw with a customer, they're an agency, they work with a lot of different clients, and they get requests coming in via email to, kick off a new project. And we walked through this flow where, hey, look, when you get this email, you can actually just ask Dash, like, hey, based on the email that Matt just sent about this new project, can you create a new proposal? And it took the email, all the information that the client had, all the past information that they had for the client, the past projects that they've done with the client, and populated their proposal template that they already have, they use all the time. It's a standard template. I was able to save this person like an hour of going back to all of the past files, of finding like, hey, this is the invoice from last time. This is where they're located. Here's the people on their team. All of that was just populated from past content. And that, I think, is a huge aha moment because it saved you a bunch of different steps in order to actually just get something done that you can now just send off to your team or your boss or back to the client, whoever it is. And I remember on that call, the customer said, this looks like something I would have written, and that's not something I'm getting out of other tools. And I think that's huge because you saved a bunch of time in finding everything and synthesizing everything and creating the first draft. But if I don't need to do the 5 steps after that to make it shareable, I think that's huge for a customer in terms of this amount of time that they save, the way they sort of feel that tool is really made for them, understands that work. I think that moment of delight, always lands really well with customers.
Is this the thing that differentiates Dash from something like a ChatGPT or a Claude, just the fact that it has access to all of that context?
Yeah, absolutely. Oftentimes, I think, when I'm using other tools, it kind of gets a little distracted by things that I'm not super keen on. Like, yes, it has all of this like session history, and I'm like, that thing was months ago. I don't care about that thing anymore. And so the fact that all my content is hooked up to it understands like, hey, this week, this is what is priority for me. This thing that, was important in the past seems like you actually haven't worked on that in a little while. And so it's no longer important to you. And that's pretty powerful because it saved you a bunch of time not having to explain that context and for, a tool to understand what's actually important to you. Because a lot of other tools don't have access to that type of information. And that makes, your job when you're asking it to find things a little bit easier.
Gathering all of this context into one place is no small feat. You have to build the infrastructure that can connect to all the different apps that people use for work. You have to index all of that content and understand how it all fits together. And then you need to figure out how to actually make meaning out of all of this stuff, so that when you go looking for answers or that elusive piece of content, you always get the most relevant results. All of this work is called context engineering. And it's what makes Dash a lot more useful than other tools you may have tried.
One of the promises of context engineering is, when you first start that chat, before you even ask the question, we push something into the context already. So that this is the LLM knowing something about you already, is that we've done that pre-processing to kind of seed it.
That's Sean Michael Lewis, principal engineer at Dropbox. We heard from him a little bit at the beginning of the episode. When Noorain talked about that feeling of delight people have when using Dash, Sean Michael is one of the engineers who helps make those moments possible.
If you're in a work environment, you have a whole corpus of company knowledge. That corpus can then, be used to figure out like what things matter to your company overall or what things matter to you within that company. So those are the kind of things that we're thinking about. How do we take the things that matter most to a user and precede the AI with more information about you outside of the context of the current chat? In my work, I have like 5 projects that are going on, we'll say. There are documents and tickets and other artifacts that represent my work or even like other people's work, but that I care about and are related to my work. And those things are discoverable even before I have my first chat. And so how do we, not only bring that together for me, but then say, okay, who else am I working with? Or, which things are maybe higher priority based on like the kinds of people that are commenting on them, like which project is, should you be paying more attention to? These things we can infer from meetings, from documents, from comments, from Slack messages. And so trying to bring that all together such that we can, help me understand where I should be putting my attention a little bit. And then also when I start, when I want to solve a problem, it kind of already knows some of the things that I want to be achieving and some of the things that I might be sort of, hinting at because of projects that I'm already working on.
Right.
So that's just one. Projects are a good example because they're, there's usually a lot of structure around them at a company, but there's a lot of information that's not baked directly into that structure. So you'll have tickets or what have you, but there's a lot of documents and conversations about those things that aren't connected to the tickets.
Right.
Putting that all together is part of the context engineering. Then linking all those things to an individual is giving that person their context.
When you talk about being able to understand the relationship between documents, projects, people, all these different kinds of signals and pieces of context, why is it important to, get that right, to be able to like actually understand that and map that out in a way that can help someone?
The shortest version is it saves you time, right? But it also saves you personal attention and context switching, which is like exhausting. And so there are many benefits in that regard by not having to know where I should be looking for things and not even just like actively going to search for something. I know someone said this, but I don't know where. So let me go search across all my services. That's helpful. But what's even better is we're talking about, Project A, and that stuff is just pushed to me. Like, here's all the stuff you need to know about Project A. It saves me a lot of time and like effort to just, it allows me to focus on the thing, which is collating that information for myself and then making decisions, which is what knowledge workers are supposed to do, is make decisions and synthesize that information. And it really just like takes away a lot of the toil of finding that information, because you want your knowledge workers to be better at making decisions and having ideas than looking for things. Like, I think they're different skills, and I think we can, help them a lot there.
Because what is the alternative there? Like, I'm thinking of a scenario where someone goes and they're trying to like search through their Gmail, or they're trying to like ask a question about maybe a file they've uploaded to ChatGPT. I mean, what's the difference in terms of like the quality of results you're going to get from something like that versus some of what we're building here?
I mean, if you know the answer is in a file, uploading it to ChatGPT is great, right? But if you don't know exactly where the thing you want is, and if there are things that are related to that file or even linking to that file, then you are going to want a system that's trying to put that all together for you. And this gets, really, amplifies exponentially as the size of your company and corpus grow. And so, like, the less I know precisely where something is, the more the system helps. And, in my daily work, there are often times where I don't know precisely how to do something, but I vaguely know how to do it. I don't know precisely where something is, but I remember somebody was talking about it at some point, or I read it in some doc, maybe. And in the past, I either spend a bunch of time searching a bunch of different services and maybe finding it. And that's like me being a good citizen. The bad citizen version of me is that I just go on Slack and start asking people and like making noise in various chats and distracting other people to get my answers. And so I think this helps in both fronts. It helps distract other people less. It also helps me not have to do a bunch of toil or better note taking about where all my information is.
When someone sits down, maybe they're using the search bar in Dropbox and they're typing in a query or they're opening up a chat, like what happens from that point onwards?
The first thing that happens is we ask the AI to make sense of this question.
Sure.
Like, what steps would the AI take to sort of service this? And we tell it what things are available to it. So you have basically our context engine, but it may have also access to the web or some other place. You have sources that it can consult. There's this whole engine of bringing data in from third parties to bring into our context platform. And then there's what we call enrichment. So enrichment is like taking the content and trying to turn it into context. And that has a couple of meanings. One is, how do we make this just more readable and more usable by LLMs? So taking all of this sort of base content and turning it into a bundle of information that can be both searched, but also be processed more easily by the LLMs themselves. Then there's another layer, which is linking the content and building these clusters of content. So that can be clustered by people that are working on it, like I said, but it could also be clustered by topic. These clusters of topics that are relevant to a company, and then people can be associated with those as well. That's the content part of, I would say, context. Then there's also your usage of things. So again, your activities are going to inform, go into a sort of separate pathway that sort of helps informs how we rank content. Behind the scenes, we have ways of ranking results based on signals that are deeper than just the semantic content. There's also your prior usage of our products, specifically the chat product, that is telling us a direct signal about the things that you're working on, the things that you're interested in. It's a separate part of context that gets captured separately, and the two go together. Your content and your personal, your usage context go together to create the overall context for a user and a team.
Right. How do you keep that content fresh? How do you ensure that stuff isn't going out of date, and that when someone's asking a question or, doing work within something like Dash, that it's going to be current and relevant and timely? Yeah, keeping track of time is a little bit difficult in this world, but most things have a modified by date, and so you can, in ranking, especially when we're doing regular retrieval or even file system retrieval, you have some notion of things that have been updated more frequently, and so you can give a little boost to those for sure. But beyond that, we're constantly re-indexing things. We are constantly recalculating derived context based on file changes. We're talking on the order of seconds, minutes, that when files change, we are recalculating, links between documents, links between people, sort of semantic intent of documents and other content.
Can you describe what you mean when you say semantic intent or semantic contents?
Yeah. So, a document has a purpose and it has words in it. What the title is and what the overall intent of the document may not match. And even the keywords that really make the document come out may not actually say, what is this document about, or what is this document trying to achieve? So that's the semantic thing. And that's one of the things that LLMs are really good at. And so one of the things we're trying to extract out of content, and even signals like your usage and commenting patterns.
We've talked about ranking a couple of times now. We've talked about sort of relevance. Is there a system that you could kind of map out that handles all of that? How do we kind of approach that or think about that when it comes to something like our context engine?
Ranking and relevance are related, but I think slightly separate things.
Sure.
And so relevance is do we think this thing matches the content that you're looking for? And then, the more semantic signal we have, the better we can narrow in on that. And then ranking brings in these sort of extra content, things that live outside the content that indicate why it may be more relevant to you specifically. So those two things are somewhat separate. They can have some overlap for sure, but yeah, we're pulling different signals. I would say ranking comes mostly from activity signals, and relevance comes mostly from the content.
At the beginning, you talked about how I think one of the larger goals of all of this work is to really improve the quality of the answers and the results that we're able to give to users of these products. And wondering how you know that the quality and the results are improving. How do you measure that?
Evaluations, or evals is the term that is very critical in these sort of stochastic kind of environments, right? So we can't say for certain that something is correct. Usually we need a human to figure that out, but we collect chat conversations and we ask LLMs to evaluate how satisfied is the user with this, and how accurate did the LLM that made this response, how accurate was it? And so when we make a change, we want to see that evaluation on some subset of our population. We want to see it go up. In the past, if you had some kind of algorithm that was trying to determine who to show what content to. You'd want to see that, this led to a greater click-through rate or something like that. This is different where we're, certainly we want to see more usage, but we also want to get a sense from the conversation. We often have you can see, frustration within the user or satisfaction within the user. I often tell LLMs, oh, good job, thanks. I think some people do that, but you see these signals and you can say, hey, this was a successful interaction, or hey, this wasn't a successful interaction. And so when we make changes, we want to see those numbers go and start climbing. A lot of Dropbox customers are creatives, and they have a lot of times they might be agencies, or they may be very project oriented. So filmmakers or music creators, and they'll have directories per project or per album or what have you. And then agencies have, directories per customer, and then projects within that customer, or, and then there's a sort of structure to them, here's the proposal for this project. And there's a sort of commonality to how things work. When we were early starting, we didn't realize how important it was to people for us to understand that structure. They would ask questions and we would be doing kind of normal search, and actually understanding the structure of their Dropbox is one of the most important pieces of context.
Can you ever have too much context with these systems? Does more context make the results better and the quality better?
So the models are changing, and they're able, GPT 5.2 and, Opus 4.5, these models have come out, and they have immense context windows, and they're what's called context rot. When the context grows, it starts forgetting things and confusing things. It happens less. It doesn't happen not at all, but it happens much less. So a lot of the, filling the context with too much stuff is not as big of an issue as it was. However, I mean, even when you're just interacting with AI day to day, the more precise your instructions to it, the better results you get. The more you're you kind of are vague about what you want, the more it decides where it should go. And so you're oh, actually, no, I need to be more precise. And then it's going to kind of do more what I want it to do. The same thing is true with context. The more you give it, the more you're kind of letting it figure out where to put its attention. And the less that you give it, or the more focus you give it, the more you're really directing it to do the things you want.
Which hopefully frees you up to do more of the things you want, too. Maybe it's more space to collaborate, or focus on the creative parts of your job. Before we wrap up the episode, I wanted to ask Noorain what that would look like for her.
I want to spend more time doing more strategic thinking, taking a step back, thinking about where we could be a month from now, 2 months from now, rather than kind of in the busy work of, I need to follow up with this person on Slack, or I need to, summarize the insights from this call from this morning, or something of that sort. It's useful to me enough that I can kind of delegate some of the tasks that I have day to day that I don't really want to spend a ton of time on, in order to do things that I find more compelling and make me more excited about, coming to work every day, or getting things done, and the type of thinking that I want to do.
Of course, that's the best case scenario, but not everyone is so lucky.
It's very frustrating to try to work with an LLM when you're what I'm describing to you is already reasonable. This is not a hard ask. Why are you just not following my instructions?
So how do you build AI that not only listens, but actually understands the work you do? And for that matter, what you want it to do? It all starts with chat and the AI agents that keep the answers coming. That's on our next episode of Working Smarter. We'll see you next time. Working Smarter is brought to you by Dropbox. Find, organize, and share your work all in one place with context-aware AI from Dropbox. You can listen to more episodes of Working Smarter on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also find more interviews like this one on our website, workingsmarter.ai. Working Smarter would not be possible without the talented team at Cosmic Standard, producer Ben Montoya, sound engineer Asia Simpson, technical director Jacob Winnick, and executive producer Eliza Smith. Special thanks to our illustrator Fanny Lohr and to Megan Ellingbow for marketing support. Our theme song was composed by Doug Stewart, and I'm your host, Matthew Braga. Thanks for listening.